In the world of Westeros, where dragons once ruled the skies and noble houses clashed for the Iron Throne, there lies a tale that has remained largely untold, a tale of a girl who defied her fate, tamed a wild dragon, and became a pivotal figure in one of the bloodiest conflicts the realm had ever seen. Her name is Nettles, and she is not your typical heroine. She was born into a world that never intended to remember her, a world where her name was meant to be forgotten. Yet, against all odds, she carved out a place in history that even the greatest lords and ladies could not erase. But who was Nettles? What drove her to tame a dragon that no man could control? And why did her story become one of the most enigmatic and controversial in the annals of Targaryen history? In today's video, we're diving deep into the untold story of Nettles, the forgotten heroine of the Dance of Dragons. This isn't just another tale from the pages of Fire and Blood. This is a journey into the heart of a character whose legacy has been overshadowed by more famous names, but whose impact on the Targaryen dynasty is undeniable. You might think you know everything about the Targaryens and their dragons, but we're about to uncover secrets that only the most dedicated fans of George R.R. Martin's world are aware of. We'll explore the complexities of Nettles' character, her mysterious origins, and her role in one of the most devastating wars in Westeros history. And for those of you who consider yourselves true fans of Targaryen lore, here's a challenge. What is the one secret Nettles shared with Prince Daemon Targaryen that even Queen Rhaenyra herself could not foresee? Think you know the answer? Stick around, because we'll reveal it at the end of this video. So, get ready to discover the story of Nettles, a tale of resilience, betrayal, and a bond between a girl and her dragon that defied the very laws of Westeros. Let's dive in. Who was Nettles before she became a dragon rider? Her story begins far from the halls of power and privilege, in a place where survival was a daily struggle, and the idea of riding a dragon would have seemed like a distant dream. Nettles was born in 113 AC, likely in the bustling, gritty streets of Spicetown and Hull on the island of Driftmark. With its rough docks and busy markets, Driftmark was a world away from the grandeur of Dragonstone or King's Landing. It was a place where a child like Nettles could easily be overlooked, another face in a sea of commoners. Her parentage was as murky as the waters around the island, with whispers that she was the illegitimate daughter of a dockside harlot. Life for Nettles was harsh and unforgiving. From a young age, she learned to fend for herself, navigating the dangerous streets and back alleys where only the strong or the clever survived. Imagine a small, skinny girl with brown skin, black hair, and sharp brown eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. Her nose was scarred, a mark left behind by a cruel hand after she was caught stealing. Her teeth were crooked, her clothes ragged, and her hands were always dirty from the endless toil of a life spent scraping by. But don't be fooled by her appearance. Nettles may not have been beautiful by the standards of Westeros. Archmaester Gildane even wrote that she could not be called pretty. But what she lacked in beauty, she more than made up for in spirit. Nettles was fearless, foul-mouthed, and fiercely independent. She had to be. In a world that offered her nothing, she took what she needed, and she did it with a determination that would soon set her apart from the thousands of other nameless children growing up in the shadows of noble houses. Nettles wasn't just any street urchin. There was something about her that hinted at a greater destiny. While other children dreamed of safety, Nettles dreamed of something more, something that would eventually lead her to a dragon's lair. But before we get to that, there's a question we need to consider. Was Nettles truly a common girl, or was there something in her blood that connected her to the ancient magic of the dragons? This question of her lineage lingers throughout her story, and it's one we'll explore as we delve deeper into her journey. For now, though, picture Nettles as she was, small, skinny, and overlooked by the world around her. But even in those early years, there was a spark within her that set her apart. a spark that would eventually ignite a bond with one of the most feared dragons in Westeros. And it all began with a single, seemingly impossible task: taming a dragon that no man could control. Nettles' journey from the streets of Spicetown to the skies of Westeros is nothing short of extraordinary. In a world where dragons were symbols of power and prestige, the idea of a common girl taming one seemed impossible. Yet, Nettles did the unthinkable. She bonded with a dragon that even the bravest men dared not approach. Unlike the majestic dragons ridden by Targaryen royalty, Sheepstealer was a wild and unpredictable beast, known for his dull, mud-brown scales and a nasty temper to match. He earned his name from his habit of swooping down on shepherds' flocks, snatching up sheep with terrifying ease. Sheepstealer was feared throughout the land, not just because of his size and strength, but because he was utterly untamed. Many had tried to claim him, but all had failed, until Nettles came along. So how did this young, unassuming girl accomplish what others could not? Nettles didn't rely on brute strength or noble blood. Instead, she used something far more powerful: patience, cunning, and a deep understanding of the creature she sought to tame. Every morning, without fail, Nettles would bring Sheepstealer a freshly slaughtered sheep. Day after day, she repeated this ritual, approaching slowly, cautiously, until the dragon began to associate her presence with food. It was a simple yet brilliant strategy, one that showed not just her resourcefulness, but her willingness to earn the dragon's trust on his terms. Sheepstealer, known for his fierce independence, gradually began to accept Nettles. Over time, he allowed her to come closer, to touch him, and finally, to mount him. It was a bond forged not by force, but by mutual respect, something rare in the brutal world of dragon riding. But what did this bond mean? In a land where dragons were the ultimate weapon, Nettles' ability to tame Sheepstealer elevated her from a lowly street urchin to a figure of real power. It was a transformation that caught the attention of everyone, from commoners to kings, and set the stage for her role in the Dance of Dragons. What's even more remarkable is that Nettles' connection with Sheepstealer wasn't just about control, it was about survival. For Nettles, taming Sheepstealer wasn't just a means to power, it was a way to protect herself in a world that had given her nothing but hardship. This bond was her shield, her sword, and her ticket to a life beyond the streets of Driftmark. Now, if you've seen the House of the Dragon series, you might be wondering how this incredible story was portrayed on screen. In the show, some aspects of Nettles' character are merged with Rhaenyra Targaryen, leaving out the full depth of her connection with Sheepstealer. But in George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood, the bond between Nettles and Sheepstealer is central to her story, a testament to her cunning, her patience, and her unyielding will to survive. As we move forward, we'll see how this bond with Sheepstealer not only defined Nettles' life, but also thrust her into the heart of one of the most devastating conflicts in Westeros. But before we get there, ask yourself, what would it take to tame a creature as wild and fierce as Sheepstealer? For Nettles, it was a combination of wits, courage, and perhaps a touch of something more, something that would soon place her in the crosshairs of power, politics, and betrayal. As the flames of the Dance of Dragons engulfed Westeros, alliances were forged, battles were fought, and dragons clashed in the skies. But amidst this chaos, one dragon rider stood out, not for her lineage or her nobility, but for her sheer audacity and courage. Nettles, once a street urchin with nothing to her name, was now a key player in the bloody Targaryen civil war. By the year 130 AC, the Dance of Dragons was in full swing. The realm was torn apart by the conflict between the Blacks, who supported Rhaenyra Targaryen's claim to the Iron Throne, and the Greens, who backed Aegon II. It was a war that pitted dragon against dragon, brother against sister, and left a trail of destruction in its wake. Nettles, riding the formidable Sheepstealer, found herself thrust into the heart of this conflict. One of her first major battles was the Battle of the Gullet, a brutal naval engagement where the Blacks sought to protect the Valyrian fleet from the Green's assault. Nettles flew alongside the other dragon riders, raining fire down upon the enemy ships. It was a chaotic and bloody fight, and while some of her fellow riders reveled in the victory, Nettles was different. When the battle was over, she didn't join in the celebrations. Instead, she was seen tearful, her face blackened with smoke, her eyes haunted by the carnage she had witnessed. This moment of vulnerability reveals a side of Nettles that's often overlooked, a side that felt the weight of the destruction, the loss of life, and the true cost of war. While others celebrated their triumphs, Nettles mourned the dead, both friend and foe. It's a testament to her character, showing that beneath her tough exterior was a young girl grappling with the horrors of a world at war. But Nettles's role in the Dance of Dragons didn't end there. Her bond with Sheepstealer and her growing reputation as a skilled dragon rider caught the attention of Daemon Targaryen, Rhaenyra's husband, and one of the most formidable warriors of his time. Daemon, known for his ruthlessness and cunning, recognized that Nettles and her dragon could be valuable allies in the fight against Prince Daemon Targaryen and his dragon, Vhagar, one of the largest and most feared dragons in Westeros. Daemon and Nettles became an unlikely duo, hunting Aemond along the rivers and forests of the Trident. Their mission was clear: to take down Vhagar, a dragon so powerful that it had already claimed the lives of many. Theirs was a partnership forged in the heat of battle, with Nettles proving time and again that she was no mere pawn in this deadly game, but a warrior in her own right. Yet as their alliance grew stronger, so too did the whispers and rumors. Some say they were lovers, while others believe Daemon saw her as a daughter figure. Whatever the case, their bond became a point of contention, sowing the seeds of jealousy and distrust that would soon lead to betrayal. But before we get to that, consider this. Nettles, a girl who had nothing, was now fighting alongside one of the most powerful men in Westeros, riding a dragon that had once been the terror of shepherds and farmers. She was no longer just a survivor, she was a force to be reckoned with, playing a pivotal role in the greatest civil war Westeros had ever seen. As we continue, we'll delve into the controversy surrounding Nettles and Daemon, exploring how their partnership became a lightning rod for suspicion and ultimately led to a deadly order from the Queen herself. But for now, think about the journey Nettles had taken, from the slums of Driftmark to the skies above the battlefield, where dragons fought and died, and the fate of a kingdom hung in the balance. As the Dance of Dragons raged on, the bond between Nettles and Daemon Targaryen grew stronger, but with it came whispers, suspicions, and ultimately, betrayal. What began as a strategic alliance between a prince and a dragon rider quickly evolved into one of the most controversial relationships in Westeros history. Daemon Targaryen was a man of many contradictions, ruthless in battle, yet capable of deep affection. He was known as the Rogue Prince, feared and respected in equal measure. But when he joined forces with Nettles, questions arose. Why would a prince of the blood ally himself so closely with a common girl, a dragon seed of uncertain birth? The answer, as always in Westeros, was far more complicated than it seemed. According to the testimony of Mushroom, an infamous court jester whose accounts often straddle the line between truth and fiction, Daemon and Nettles were more than just allies. They were lovers. Mushroom claimed that Daemon had taken Nettles as his bedmate and that he had fallen deeply in love with her, despite the vast difference in their stations. While this story might sound scandalous, it's important to remember that Mushroom was known for his controversial writings. But even if his tale was exaggerated, it couldn't be entirely dismissed. After all, Nettles was a young, fiercely independent girl who had won the loyalty of one of the most dangerous dragons in Westeros. It's not hard to imagine that Daemon might have been drawn to her strength and spirit. But not everyone believed in a romance. Archmaester Gildane, whose historical accounts are often considered more reliable, suggests a different story. According to Gildane, Daemon treated Nettles more like a daughter than a lover. He doted on her, teaching her the courtesies of noble life, gifting her fine clothes, and ensuring she was well cared for. To Gildane, this relationship was one of mentorship and perhaps even fatherly affection, an interpretation that paints a very different picture from Mushroom's lurid tale. Regardless of the true nature of their relationship, one thing is certain. It was enough to spark jealousy and fear in Queen Rhaenyra. Already worn down by the betrayals of other dragon seeds, Rhaenyra began to see Nettles not as an ally, but as a threat. Fed by the rumors and the growing closeness between Daemon and Nettles, Rhaenyra's suspicions turned to paranoia. She feared that Nettles had used sorcery to bind Sheepstealer to her will, and worse, that she had bewitched Daemon as well. In a fit of rage, Rhaenyra sent a raven to Lord Manfred Mouton of Maiden Pool, where Daemon and Nettles were staying. The message was chillingly clear. Nettles was to be executed, her head delivered to the queen as proof of her loyalty. But there was a caveat. Daemon was not to be harmed. Rhaenyra still loved her husband, despite her fears, and believed that without Nettles's influence, he would return to her. When the letter arrived at Maidenpool, it struck fear into the hearts of Lord Mouton and his council. They knew that killing Nettles would likely incur Daemon's wrath, a wrath that could bring destruction to their entire household. So they hesitated, debated, and ultimately chose a path of caution. Instead of following the Queen's orders, they warned Daemon of the impending danger. The next morning, Daemon and Nettles shared one final moment together. He helped her saddle Sheepstealer, watched as she fed the dragon a freshly slaughtered ram, and without a word, they said their silent goodbyes. As Sheepstealer took to the sky, disappearing into the mists of the Bay of Crabs, Daemon's other dragon, Caraxes, let out a roar so powerful it shattered the windows of Jonquil's tower. It was a scream of anguish, of loss, and of a bond broken by the treacherous hand of politics. What truly happened between Daemon and Nettles in their final hours together? Were they lovers torn apart by suspicion and fear? Or was their relationship something else entirely, a deep, unspoken bond forged in the fires of war? History leaves us with more questions than answers. But one thing is clear. Their connection was powerful enough to challenge even the will of a queen. As we prepare to explore Nettles's final disappearance and her lasting legacy, reflect on this. In the brutal world of Westeros, where power and loyalty are often measured in blood, how far would you go to protect someone you cared about? For Daemon Targaryen, it meant defying his queen, his wife, and letting go of the one person who might have understood him better than anyone else. After her farewell with Daemon Targaryen, Nettles flew away on Sheepstealer, vanishing into the mists of the Bay of Crabs. She was never seen at court or in any of the great castles of Westeros again. To many, this marked the end of her story. A girl who rose from nothing, tamed a dragon, played a crucial role in a civil war, and then disappeared as mysteriously as she had arrived. There are whispers, stories passed down through the generations, that place Nettles in the mountains of the moon, deep in the Vale of Arryn. There, it's said, she lived out her days in a hidden valley far from the reach of kings and queens. The locals spoke of a fire witch, a woman who commanded a dragon with scales as brown as the earth and a temper as fierce as the storms that swept through the mountains. The mountain clans, particularly the Burned Men, came to revere her. Their young warriors would bring gifts to her, proving their bravery by facing the flames of her dragon. Only those who returned with burns were considered men. But what does this say about her legacy? In many ways, Nettles represents the resilience of those who are often overlooked by history. She wasn't born into power. She wasn't a Targaryen princess or a highborn lady. Yet she achieved what many could only dream of. She tamed a dragon, fought in a war that shaped the future of the realm, and in the end, she chose her own path, free from the constraints of duty or destiny. As we conclude this deep dive into the life of Nettles, consider this. In the vast history of Westeros, filled with grand battles, legendary figures, and epic tales, Nettles stands out not because of where she came from, but because of what she became: a dragon rider, a warrior, and perhaps most importantly, a survivor. Here's the answer to our earlier question. The secret shared by Daemon and Nettles was their unspoken bond, forged in battle and betrayal, strong enough to defy even the commands of a queen. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this look into one of Westeros's most intriguing characters, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the lore of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. There's so much more to explore, and we can't wait to take you on the next journey.